Hello, Internet. So I just finished reading the book Paper Towns, and I was so inspired by both the map imagery and a particular quote, "Everyone gets a miracle." This really resonated with me personally because in the past year, my family has kind of gone through some health crises and we got our miracle. So I feel like I wanted to make a piece of art inspired by that quote. Here's what you'll need if you want to make your own. Scrap paper, a marker, a map, flocking powder, embossing powder, a wide tip glue pen, cutting mat, rotary cutter, a straight edge, an ironing board, and a heat gun. All right, before I start on the actual map, I'm going to get a piece of scrap paper and just kind of plot out what I want the words to look like. This is optional, but I recommend it because it kind of gives you an idea of how much space you need on the map, how big your letters should be. You can play it with fonts and what have you. I'm using a wide tip marker for this because it kind of replicates this wide tip glue pen that I'm going to use later. Now, if you don't have great handwriting, you can definitely print off of the internet, the font of your choice, and trace it or just practice it a few times until you get it exactly how you want. So I think that's going to work fine. Now we're going to choose our map. These big atlases are actually kind of hard to come by in this age of smartphones and GPS. You may find that you have one laying around in a drawer somewhere. You also could use scrapbook paper with a map print on it if you want to buy it by the sheet. I chose this map of Ohio and Cincinnati. And I selected that because the hospital in Cincinnati is where my son was treated and where we got the great news about his health. So it's very sentimental to me. You may like to choose a place where you went on a road trip, a city you hope to visit, whatever speaks to you in the moment. So once you've chosen your map, go ahead and tear it out of the atlas. Now grab your wide tip glue pen. We're going to write one word at a time, pause, sprinkle on our flocking powder, and then move on to the next line. This keeps the glue from drying before you get a chance to add the flocking powder. Now, working pretty quickly because this glue does dry quickly, just sprinkle your flocking powder generously over the glue. So you may be wondering, what is flocking powder? Think of it as what velvet is made of. It's very fuzzy. If you've ever gotten a greeting card that has kind of a velvety texture, that's flocking. So once you've sprinkled it over the glue, take your piece of scrap paper and you can kind of move it around to areas where you think you need more and gently press, just to make sure that the glue is catching all of that fuzzy flocking. Get your little container again, and we're going to pour this off. So as you can see, we have our fuzzy first line. Now we're just going to move to the next line. You'll be surprised just how far this little container of flocking powder goes. At first it won't seem like enough, but very little actually sticks to the project. As a final touch, I'm going to draw a heart around Cincinnati and sprinkle some of this gold embossing powder over that. You just get a little heart down there in the corner. Okay, so you could end your project here, but to give it a more permanent bond, we're going to set it with a heat gun. Now, a heat gun is basically like a hairdryer, but it gets a little hotter and it's a very directed heat. It doesn't blow everything off. Instead, it bonds it to the glue permanently. Now, the first time I did this project, I used a cutting mat and I completely warped it with the heat gun. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is all warped and sad. So I recommend using an ironing board or some other heat protective surface for this step. Just get your heat gun, turn it on, and set the letters with the heat. So you'll know that the letters are set when the color of the flocking gets a little bit lighter and they kind of flatten out. And on the embossing powder, you'll see the glitter actually kind of melt into the page a little bit. I am loving this. The last step is trimming off this edge and popping it in a frame. So for this, just grab your cutting mat and straight edge, and you can either use a craft knife or a rotary cutter. All right, now it's ready for the frame. And the moment of truth. Ta-da! Oh, man, I love this. I love how personal it is. You could use your own quote, the map of a place that means a lot to you. It would make a great gift too. I want to know, what quote would you put on a map? Leave it in the comments below and let me know what you think about today's project. I'll see you guys next time.